but we'll see what
I would
happens.
say, yeah, I definitely have. Hold on, I got
Yeah,
it flashing up on my screen.
here we go. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, today on Open Loops, we have Eric J. Hecker of Deciphering My Experience book. I'm going to tell you right now, this gentleman, I was part of a conference with him, and it was a conference called Total Disclosure, and he is a disclosure expert, disclosure specialist, because he's actually been in it. Now, what he's been in, what disclosure means in the context of everything that's coming out in the news, all that stuff. Um, Truly, this is some mind blowing firsthand testimony. So I'm excited to have him on. Eric, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I enjoyed the last event that we were on where you guys were hosting. I had a blast with that, so I'm happy to reconnect.
Yes, and what I find so interesting about your entire story, your entire testimony, is that you are part of your show, Deciphering My Experience, is an active conversation about what the heck has actually been happening with you in real time. It really is. You are having guests that are experts in the fields that are related to your questions about anomalies and whatnot, and they're feeding you, and you're getting real-time updates about your past experiences that weren't even necessarily fully conscious. It's very interesting where you're at, and we're going to go there because I know even since that event, you mentioned before we started that you've had more revelations. So why don't we go here? I'm going to sit back and listen. Please, Eric, how did your I'll put it this way. Why does your experience need to be deciphered?
Because I lacked, I guess I would add publicly to the end of that. Why did it need to be deciphered publicly was because I didn't have the patience to do it privately. I knew something was going on in my life. I was cognizant of that much, but I wasn't currently aware of the depth of what was going on. And a lot of folks that were around me in my circles that I was communicating, certain things with, it was almost like in every direction, people talk about cells and compartments. It was like I would reach out to different experts in their field, so to say, like, hey, I had this weird experience. What do you think about that? Oh, that's extremely weird. Wow, you should write a book about that. And then I would talk to someone else, and all these different directions that I would go to. Everybody was telling me that I had this exceptional experience that was noteworthy, and I should tell people about it. And it was like, well, heaven forbid I put this all together.
Yeah, are you
Nobody.
afraid of what you're going to find?
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not afraid at all because I just believe it to be the truth, which I believe to be the right thing to speak. It's that simple. I think I've been heavily deceived by a lot of factions over my years of working places. That happens. This is how these programs work. It's a need to know basis, and oftentimes there's information that folks felt I did not need to know. It doesn't mean that I
yeah,
couldn't discern it. It just means that they didn't forward that information to me on the front end.
yeah. I mean, look, I don't care how long it takes to tell the story. I want to hear it. So feel
No,
free.
no
I mean,
worries.
start from the beginning.
Oh,
I feel
geez.
like this is very well, or at
Yeah,
least the beginning that. I mean, we can time travel in this story too,
fair
and
enough. Yeah,
actually talk.
absolutely. Yeah,
I should have used
there's
that
gonna have
word
to be some
too.
jumping around.
Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, I'm curious where for you, I mean, where was your life seeming normal, and then where did things start getting a little strange?
I think when I had to start paying attention to the oddity of my life, that it was unavoidable anymore, was when I got a contract to go to the South Pole Station, because that is certainly not something everybody gets to do. There was a lot of other odd things that happened in my life that singularly I could just pass off and, it's just luck, you know? Um,
Yeah,
but getting that contract at the South Pole Station and spending the winter there, that's an extremely short list of people on this planet. That's probably one of the shortest lists. I believe they say, fewer people have been have wintered at the South Pole than have gone to space. I think there's been
And
more than that. Some
when
weird
you say
numbers
the
like
South
that.
Pole, I mean we're talking Antarctica, right?
I mean the official South Pole of Antarctica. A lot of folks contemporarily refer to the entire continent of Antarctica as the South Pole. I get that. For someone who's never been on continent, who's never been on the ice, it would appear that way. I actually spent a year at 90 degrees south on this planet, the actual geographic South Pole. There's no further south to go. Everywhere else is north.
Yeah. How did you? I mean, what were you doing before that would even lead to such a contract?
I was a plumber by trade, plumbing and heating. I had a company in New York, and I was providing 24-hour emergency service, and that's what I did. And the economy tanked, and I started
Yeah.
looking for work, and the economy was so bad, I was looking everywhere on the planet for work. That's funny, actually. But
Right.
the
Yeah.
the contract that came in my direction was offered from Centennial, Colorado at the time. And when I applied to that contract, they informed me that it was in reality for contracts throughout Antarctica, was what they're telling me at the time. And then eventually,
Interesting.
when they got a hold of me for an interest in me, then they were pumping me straight towards South Pole Station.
That is very peculiar. I mean, was this company on LinkedIn at all? I don't even, you know.
Well,
Um,
it was a Raytheon subsidiary. It was Raytheon Polar Services was the hiring contractor. They're now defunct. They basically only existed to support that contract. So that's how companies like Raytheon function as well. Raytheon Polar Services is gone now. I mean, there's no, they disappeared as soon as the contract went away.
Yeah, that's already. I mean, look, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. Those are the big names in this kind of extraterrestrial advanced technology space. Which I kind of know we're gonna get there, but already, I mean, if someone came to me right now and said, "Greg, you're gonna work for Raytheon," I'd want to know what the secrets are. But back. I mean, what did you think you were getting into with this as it relates to your plumbing and heating business?
I knew to be extremely on guard because I had previous experience in the submarine service and an understanding of what Raytheon's value is to the world. So I was very apprehensive about taking a contract for Raytheon.
Yeah.
I went in there
Wow.
wide open eyeballs and just paying attention was what I thought.
And what kind of work were you contracted to do specifically
Oh, to be a plumber. I was contracted to be a plumber at the
on the
South
South
Pole.
Pole?
Yep.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. So I guess I mean, I don't know where you're at. Now in terms of did you have to uproot your entire family? Were you telling them you were leaving
Oh
for a
no
little
no no
bit?
no. This is you don't take your family there. This is single
Yeah.
single occupancy rooms and things like that. Really tight quarters. The summer season, I was sleeping in a tent at the South Pole. It's called the Jamesway. They were World War II. I'm sorry, they were Korean War tents from back in the day that they were now reused at the South Pole Station with hot air furnaces.
Yeah.
It was
Oh
it was
my
a joke. It was
gosh.
a total joke. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
what is the
these are what
appeal
they
of
call
doing this
austere
job?
conditions. There's
It,
there's a lot of maniacs on this planet that really just want to go there at all cost. So they take jobs. There's a lot of like PhDs that are like mopping floors and cleaning tables because there's only so many positions open, and they don't pay well. So anybody that thinks they're going to get into the Antarctic program to make money, don't make that mistake. They don't pay well,
I
and
mean, is this how desperate you were? You were just going to take a job from Raytheon to do, or was there
exactly
something else?
that's precisely it. Like you said,
Wow.
I had mouths to feed, and I had zero other options. So I was going to the South Pole to work for Raytheon.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. Very interesting. So you get there, you're on a contract, and I mean, I can't imagine that being there would make you go, okay, you know what, I'm going to stick it. I'm on a contract, but I hope I can renew this thing. I mean, was there anything immediately that you liked about this job, or?
It's so funny that you're putting it this way because I had a summer contract and a potential winter contract, and I was having to hustle to get the confirmation for the winter. So I most certainly was doing everything in my power to make that happen.
Really? What was it that
Absolutely.
it was keeping you interested?
Employment.
That was it.
That's it. This is the way that the world works. Unless anybody out there is gonna act like they're not job scared right now and doing everything they're told to do, cut it
Yeah.
out, everybody. You're all doing it right now. That is the way of the world. You chicken mother uffers.
No, I'm not saying that,
I am.
oh, Eric, you should have found your purpose and pursued something that was meaningful to. No, I mean, come on. This is trying to survive in this world. That makes sense. And I mean, the South Pole's a little strange, but at the same time, I get it. If you're desperate to find work, you're desperate. Um, and I'm wondering, I mean, well, why aren't you still there?
Oh, mostly because they rotate you out. You're forced to depart. You can only stay so long. And then in
Yeah.
the interim, I had found other employment.
Okay. So there was, they're swapping people in and out, but I do know that when you were there, uh, you you started doing things, right?
Did I get
Is
started? What
this
was
some?
that?
You started noticing things that seemed a little off.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. What exactly happened?
One of the things that I noticed while I was there was the ELF, which is the extra low frequency system, which is a massive antenna, miles of stuff in the ice, and the service switches for it, the breaker panels. I found that they were energized. The system that was supposed to be de-energized was energized. It was just that simple. Anybody that does trade work, and you have to work on equipment, you have to go through a process they call lockout, tagout. Make sure that your equipment's properly isolated and de-energized so nobody gets hurt. But in the process of walking down the system and getting to, a breaker panel where all of a sudden, I forget the numbers, but let's just say I'm going down the list and it says, all of these breakers over here are off, except for this one that you're working on that's on, and now you need to de-energize it. But then you look and you go, hold on, it says this is off, but it's on. This other one is on. The one next to the one that, it's not the one that I'm on, I get that. It's the one next to it, but it's still misinformation. Something's wrong in the info that I got. So I have to find out what's going on. Why is this breaker that says that it's off actually on? And then I become
Yeah.
informed that that's for the ELF and it's on and it's supposed to be on. And at that point, I'm just informed that that's supposed to be on. It's not the circuit that I am on, so my concern is over. I de-energize the circuit that I'm working on. I lock it out. I tag it out. I try it for safety, and I move on my way with my work.
Interesting.
Now
But
I know
then
the
this
ELF
doesn't
is
stop you.
energized. Stop me from what? There's no impediment to my workload. I've
Oh,
now
right. But this doesn't stop you from. I mean, you keep asking questions, right? Isn't that part of the story?
who am I
Or do you?
supposed to ask what of where?
I guess
What am
maybe
I
of
supposed
yourself.
to
I
ask at
mean,
that point? Why is this on?
well,
And they'll say science.
right, right.
And then what do
But
I do?
okay,
Do I start yelling at management? You're liars,
but you can't do that.
right? I
Yeah,
mean, what am I supposed to do? I have a job to do. They're going to say, get back to work. We told you what's going on. It's on. Any more questions before you get back to work? I mean, I'm at work. I'm not visiting the place. I'm at work.
yeah.
Those are my employers.
Right, right. So I mean, okay.
I mean,
So
what am I doing wrong? What am I supposed to ask?
I guess you're not supposed to ask anything if it's.
Not right,
I don't
not
want.
right then
I
and
don't want you
there.
to get fired. I don't
Not
want you
right
to get
then and there.
fired.
You can't get fired actually because it's also winter time and there's nowhere to go. So it's also an employment situation like none other.
Yeah, Right, right. Oh, this is getting very interesting. Okay. So then what comes after this? You ask the question, they say, "Oh, nope, this is not you're
I,
working
I
on this side?"
I take that information and I put it in the back burner of my mind because I go, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But there's nothing I can do with it right then and there. It's the middle of winter season at South Pole Station.
Yeah.
It's more or less being trapped by Raytheon at that point.
Interesting.
I'm well aware of that aspect.
Yeah. This is all okay. Okay. I know that I would
Imagine you living in your boss's house
Yeah.
and things are weird, but you can't go anywhere for 6 months.
Oh my gosh. I know. I'd want to know.
And you're like,
I want.
is that the right time to ask questions?
Right, right, right. No, that's good. I mean, hey, you were doing your duty. That's very good. I mean, do you ask anybody else who's there with you?
Absolutely. I ask everybody everything. That's one of the benefits of my job. So for all practical purposes, yes, I was contracted as a plumber, but in practical application, I was on what they called the utilities teams. They called me a UT. Everybody on staff thought of me as a UT plumber, and it basically just meant that if anything broke, I would work with people to get it up and running. I had a key that opened every door in the whole facility. I could walk in, talk to anybody. Hey, how's everything going on in your room? I have a clipboard, and I have to check things out in your room and ask questions. You think anybody ever questions that?
I feel. I mean, I
How
feel
easy it is
like,
for me to connect the dots when I start walking from room to room from people that don't get to walk from room to room.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It's a
that's
very
pretty,
privileged position.
that's power. That's power.
Like everybody knows, knowledge is power. So I'm aware of the compartmentalization of the military-industrial complex on a level that most people don't pay attention to, such as the
Yeah.
ELF being on at the South Pole Station.
Right now, it's still on.
I
As
would
far as you
assume so.
know.
I have no reason to believe it was ever turned off.
Yeah.
They were lying about it being turned off the first time, even if they said that it was off now. You know what? I'd want a plane ticket to go back and check to prove myself.
Right.
Because technically, in
Right.
the term lockout, tagout, LOTO, it's actually lockout, tagout, and try. So just like anybody else who tells me that they safely isolated the circuit, I go inspect it myself. That's the only way to really know.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently,
Okay.
they have a history of lying about the position of the switch.
Interesting. Who'd you find that out from?
The circuit breaker panel and my eyeballs.
Okay. I don't know if someone said, "Oh, by the way, they lie about this a lot."
No, well, I'm just saying, I can only speak for this particular energized piece of equipment.
Right.
In regards to them lying about piece of equipment, I could speak about other times that Raytheon has lied to me, but it wasn't about equipment being energized or not.
Yeah, what is up with this company? Do they does Raytheon ever get, customers we
I
best
probably
places
have
to
a
work of
targeting
2020?
I probably have a targeting system on my head for the stuff that I say about Raytheon because they can afford to do that. So mark my words, if a plane ever goes down with me in it, blame Raytheon.
Oh my gosh.
Basically,
Right,
as far
right.
as I'm concerned, Raytheon is the devil incarnate in corporate form.
Oh my gosh.
Not
Wow.
to mince words or anything.
Okay, what do you think's worse on the scale, Lockheed or Raytheon?
I imagine Raytheon because I believe they have they make more munitions. Technically, I think they're more about killing people, where I think Lockheed's more about the carrier. I don't know what's more lethal to the world, the bullets or the guns. I'm not 100% sure. It's a tough call.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. Okay, so look, you got your clipboard, you're walking around, you get access to everything. When is the was there anybody in particular you remember saying something to you that you went, okay, this is starting to change my idea of what's happening here?
A lot of the dynamic for me on the front end was first noticed through my understanding of the dissemination of the science information and how there was this apparent massive lag to what was being discovered and the process through which information then has to go through academia to get to the people.
Yeah.
In a way, it's you get to observe how they commercialize the information for profit through different factions, so that it effectively isn't really a dissemination of a truth, but an argument.
Now, that's a very high level answer.
That's what
but
they're
I can
doing.
also, I know, no, I could see that. I mean, it seems that there's just a lot of BS. I mean, this is the military industrial complex here. It sounds, I mean, well, look at what. Look at what's happening in the world right now with Afghanistan. No one can really. People are saying what's happening, but I'm hearing a lot of sound bites from all different sides, and it sounds like a whole lot of nothing.
Yep.
So
That
I can
argument has
imagine.
value in the commercial world. That argument has value. Every side of
Right.
every argument has a commercial application and can be marketed and funded and profiteered. This is big
Do you
game stuff.
believe? Yeah, I mean, were you? It
Did you ever hear
sounds
of
like.
Cointelpro?
Wait, what?
Did you ever hear of Cointelpro?
No, what's that?
Cointelpro was an organization that was discovered, I believe, in the 1970s when a bunch of kids busted into an FBI complex, stole the file cabinets, and then found this project called Cointelpro. And they had, I believe, the Church Senate Committee hearings to which they discovered that Cointelpro was an FBI faction that was infiltrating both sides of every argument. Oh, are you for the war? Or are you against the war? Cool, you need some Cointelpro agents.
Oh my gosh! Now that is, I mean, this is the thing. People need to realize this stuff is out there.
This
I
is
mean,
reality.
this
It's
is
all
what
referenceable.
it's all in writing. It's all out there. Now, of course, then the question is, well, did COINTELPRO come up with COINTELPRO to confuse us about the idea of there being a? But it can't just be that. There is. We feel it. Feel there is misinformation happening. We're experiencing it. People have revealed the misinformation. Were you prone to thinking like this before this experience? Were you someone that would call out a psyop, Eric, or did this experience, was this what led you to looking at the world this way?
This is not what led me to it in the slightest. I was already an avid reader of the disinformation of the history of the world. I was already very much into antiquated books with an understanding of the power of the edit through the years, that I would see how information would be pulled out of books and information streams, and that we now contemporarily had stuff that was a disgusting edit compared to stuff that was available to the hands of children 100 years ago.
Interesting. That's kind of I mean, that's quite a background to have when you're confronting I mean, living in an active disinformation campaign. I mean, you were living in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about what? Do you have a story that sticks out of somebody that you were getting information from with your clipboard and you were like, wait a minute, this is wild that they're even saying this. Can you remember anything in particular?
Well, I'll put it in a different angle, but yes, there was an activity that I partook in often, which I would say was almost daily, if I can remember correctly, because it was so much fun. There was a computer room, comms room, I guess you would say, and all of these dudes were, quote unquote, former military's satellite communications guys, and
Yeah.
my job obliged me to go do the rounds. I have to go check everything every day, just make sure everything's up and running. Their room is on the list, and I would ever so quietly sneak closely and then go barging in that room and unannounced different times of the day, just so that I can watch them scurry like cockroaches putting the lights on as they were all trying to hammer down on their monitors and shut things off and turn things off and not let me see anything, and then try to also be nonchalant about it. Like they were trying to be cool, calm, and collective while they're always turning everything off and flipping out like they're hey, what's going on? Is everything all right? Yeah, everything's fine, guys. I'm just doing my rounds. How's your day going? What's going on? And I just
Wait a minute. What do you think? I mean, do you have any idea what was on those computers that they were hiding from you? Did you get any hint of it?
communication stuff that I wasn't supposed to be seeing, whatever they're doing with those satellites that I wasn't supposed to be seeing. No, they were effectively shutting down prior to my entry.
What year was this, by the way?
This would have been 2010, 2011.
Okay. I was going to say, I wonder if you found QAnon in the South Pole, but maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a possibility. I mean, potentially. Yes, exactly. No, but I mean, that is pretty, that's strange. Okay.
I found that rather telling. And then from what I have found out, see, I mean, a lot of the stuff was absorption at the time, right? I knew that I was in Raytheon Wonderland, okay? But I also knew that this is a time to passively absorb. There's not really much I can do there. What I'm going to do is stop, figure out what they're up to and stop it. Like, it's like a Die Hard movie or something.
Yeah.
But what I did do was pay attention to everything and discern what was going on after the fact when I had access to information again. You also have to understand, I was cut off from the world.
Really? No internet, nothing?
Almost nothing when a satellite pass comes through, right? Okay. But what am I supposed to do? Jump on the Raytheon computer system and start Googling things that they're up to?
Right.
There's nothing I can do while I'm there. It's their system. It's their house. It's Raytheon. I'm not about to outwit the Raytheon computer system. I'm the plumber.
This is okay. I'm imagining. I mean, I'm trying to get into your psyche a little bit. I wonder what it is like to be working day to day, see some going on that you're not supposed to, and just continue working. I mean, is that it feels like there might be cognitive dissonance, but you also seem like someone that's strong enough willed to go, you know what? I know that my boss is sleeping with the secretary, but I'm just not going to acknowledge it, and I'm just going to keep doing my job. Did it affect you in a more profound way? Did you feel really just that sense of injustice? I mean, how was it affecting you day to day?
Oh, it's extremely taxing on the body and the mind. It's hard to express that. You have to put yourself. It is very much. You have to be in the space. I mean, when people talk about being present, I mean this is really you. There's no point in not being present at the South Pole, especially in the winter. You're nowhere near any of these other things that you can think of. You're not connected to them at all. You'll drive yourself insane trying to keep your brain there. So you have to focus on the now, like we always teach everybody. We got a psychological training as well for this program.
That's pretty weird, because what kind of psychological training was it when there is this other agenda going on? I mean, do you think they could have been trying to lead?
It was about the solitude. It was about being able to have coping mechanisms for yourself and strategies, and also an awareness to identify when your coworkers are having trouble and how to help them work through their issues. This is the solitude that, this is like going to space. If you're going to winter at South Pole, it was 49 people basically for 9 months in isolation. There's a social circumstance that's going on. There's people in the program, through the history of the program, that do become aware of how these things pan out. It's just as much as like boot camp is a tradition that everybody knows what's going to happen, except for the kids showing up in boot camp, right?
Right.
So South Pole
Right.
winter, it's a circumstance where I'm showing up to it, where everybody else is aware of what's going to happen, and they're training us for that.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, is their training you psychologically teaching you to avoid, yes, follow orders and do not ask questions, but really we mean it. Don't ask questions. That is how or is it broken enough that you could say, you know what? This was a good boot camp. It dealt with this, and they're just kind of hoping that you don't ask enough questions. Was there an agenda in your training, I suppose, is my question.
I don't believe there was an agenda in the training. It seemed like
Okay.
standard business protocols.
And I guess you could say that with the Army too, right? The Army they have the UFO program, but you're going to go through a boot camp, and they're not going to tell you not to.
I don't want to present that this Raytheon training was like boot camp at all.
Right.
I was just saying that there's a tradition to things of others having foreknowledge of something prior to arrival. That's all. The training.
So would you give a thumbs up to the Raytheon mental health program aspect of things overall?
I thought it was very effective and highly useful actually throughout my winter, and I've actually used it ever since in my waking life. The psychologist they had was Dr. Nicoletti, which my understanding was he's a highfalutin guy. He was the psychologist for the. This is interesting now. What's the Denver football team?
Oh, I truly am not a sports
Broncos.
person. I have no idea. Yeah, there we go.
It's the Denver Broncos, I believe, which now that I think about it is funny with the airport. But Dr. Nicoletti was the psychologist for the Denver Broncos, and I believe also the LA Police Department. But he was our psychologist and trainer as well.
So they're not paying you anything, but they are making you thrive in a harsh environment mentally. That's good.
That's exactly what they were setting us up for, was to become extremely comfortable in extremely uncomfortable conditions. That's my skill set.
Do you think there were people that had no idea things were weird that were just going through their time there?
Absolutely. There were people that were company folk is the way that I would put it.
Interesting.
That toe the party line and are there for Raytheon's sake 100%. Like you see like in the movies, like remember the movie Aliens? That evil son of a gun that like was trying to make the aliens impregnate everybody and sneak them back to Earth?
Right.
That would be the Raytheon representative.
Oh my gosh.
Think of that corporation like Raytheon. Like when you watch Aliens, like that corporation just substitute. Like if Raytheon,
it sounds evil. Yeah, if there was ever a villainous sounding company in the world, it's like Lex Luthor would also be in bed with Raytheon.
I can't tell you how many times the corporation that I worked for, Raytheon, said that it was too detrimental to the equipment for it to be out in that cold weather. So the snow machines have to stay inside. So I have to carry the things myself. So that's the type of love that I have for Raytheon. It's very reciprocal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just carry that 3/4 of a mile in the middle of the winter here at South Pole because you guys are concerned about that snow machine breaking down.
Oh my gosh.
Aye. So you say like in what position was I to ask questions? I was in that position. They thought very little of me.
Yeah. But clearly you still, you kept your curiosity even if you couldn't be public with it.
Correct.
Because
I paid attention, I made note, and I remembered all of the oddities, and I've since looked them up and done due diligence to connect the dots that I found when I was there.
What other oddities were there?
The ice cube neutrino detector, I think, is one of the most savage oddities that I have figured out. And I have provided documentation to back up my position on this, which is at deciphering.tv, folks. There's an archives section, and you can look up what is called the DOM document. And DOM is short for Digital Optical Module. The ice cube neutrino detector has 5,160 of these DOMs embedded in the ice in a gigantic three-dimensional hexagon shape, which I believe there's a lot to be said for that shape in regards to sacred geometry, but that's probably a whole other show. But anyhow, that's the shape of this detector.
Right.
And I found out that it doesn't just detect. It is not just a passive receiver. I've provided documentation that shows that each DOM has the ability to also transmit at a power output of up to 2,047 volts per DOM. That makes it massive phased array transmitter.
Holy crap. What is that? What is that? Break that down for people that are going, okay, well, what does that mean? Are they
That
altering
means
my brain?
That means there are now technically two directed energy weapons systems that are up and running at the South Pole Station as of my last visit.
Did you ask about that to anybody?
I've been asking about that ever since I've been connecting the dots, and everybody seems to be agreeing with me 100%. Is that they're like, boy, you stepped in it. You found something. Good on you. I recently just had a conversation with Dr. Stephen Greer of the Disclosure Project, and we had a wonderful conversation, and he just pretty much listened to everything that I threw at him and was like, yup, and then took it a step further because he and I were throwing, I mean, there's a multitude of things that these systems can do, and everybody always wants to have it like boiled down to one common thing, which if, no disrespect following this conversation, it's like every time you tell people something, it's like, well, then what's the next thing? It's like, did you just hear what I just said? The thing's shooting at us. Well, what's it shooting at us? I just said it's shooting at us. Like, what are you worried about what caliber the bullet it is? I just told you it's a gun. And now you're like, well, what kind of bullet? Well, what size primer? Well, what size like, come on, But in reality, this thing's a directed energy weapon that's multifaceted. And in addition to that, it very much appears that this is a device for interstellar communication.
Oh my gosh.
Through the manipulation of what they call torsion fields.
Okay. However, this thing was there.
Say that again.
How did you encounter? Did you encounter this thing firsthand? Did you just find the documents? Did you walk in somewhere?
I worked in this facility for a year. I became intimately familiar with its functions, and I have provided a document from the paperwork from the University of Wisconsin, if I remember correctly. That is the manufacturing university that was on this team and staff. It's their paperwork. It's their literature that states what the definition of this DOM's capacity is. It's just a sheet from their info. I found it and provided it.
Huh. I mean, I look, I don't know what kind of person you are, but at a certain point, I might stairs and knock on my boss's door and say, hey, I hear you sleeping with this secretary. I don't know why the secretaries were all in the boss's house, but it's kind of weird. I hear this. We're supposed to be doing something else here. Why are you doing this? Can we just in the open? I mean, did you ever get to a point where you were just grabbing onto people and going, "Tell me what this is. Tell me what," or did you just go through
Never
it?
when I was there. No, never. I never considered that I was in a position of power to do anything about anything when I was there. Not once.
You did mention
this is stuff that this has taken me years to figure this stuff out. I've only recently, within the last year, come across this DOM document.
Oh, interesting. Huh. So in terms of
I didn't find this when I was at the South Pole.
So when you were at the South Pole, I mean, it was clear that there were secretive things going on.
Mm-hmm.
You saw this, the ELF. You You weren't, they didn't give you any answers. You sort of were piecing things together. I mean, was there any grand revelation before we get into what happened after the fact and what led you into your research, or anything you left the South Pole with that really stuck out and it just sort of put a pin in you, or was it just time was up? It was time to move on.
Well, it was very much a time was up thing. I don't know how to tell the idea of 1 year there. I normally just try to tell people that it really, from my experience, felt like no less than 10. And I can assure you that around the 6-month mark, I was having great difficulty recalling things from off the ice. And it had felt already like I had been there forever. Like I just been there forever. And everyone's like, oh, we've been here for 6 months and we got 6 months to go. And in my head, I remember at a point, I was feeling pretty stressed out at that point. And I was going, in my head, I'm going, damn, if I've been here for 6 months and it feels like forever, I got 6 months to go. This is going to feel like forever to go. Like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
Like, it was not easy. Everybody's very acclimated to having all of their stuff nowadays. I don't do that. I haven't done that since then. I got broken of it entirely back then. But that's also the last time I saw it, and I don't think people can even comprehend that anymore. To not have television, to not have a phone at their fingertips, pushing buttons and screens all day long and interacting with people digitally. I don't do that.
Would you, if anybody says to you now, hey, look, I just got an offer from Raytheon to go to the South Pole, what would you tell them?
For a winter, I'd ask for a winter, and then I'd laugh again, and then I would ask them why they wanted to do that, and then I'd probably laugh some more.
Really? That's it? That's all you're going to tell them? I mean, would you tell them to ask it to go anywhere? Would you say, look, there was one place I didn't go, but if you go here at this time, you might find something.
I don't know that. I don't know them. I don't know them from a hole in the wall, and I don't know if they work for Raytheon.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. So wait a minute. So this experience, though, clearly this is weird stuff. I mean, look, some people walk away from, like I said, some people would just leave their job and say, yeah, the boss was doing some weird things. There was clearly some mafia stuff going on. Or I know I've been in a position where I work for someone where I'm convinced this restaurant owner was in with the mob. I know there was shady stuff, but I was done. I said, you know what? I don't want to work here because they treat me like crap.
Let me preface this with I was doing my plumbing and heating work in New York. So when I talk about being good at decompartmentalizing things and going from place to place, yeah, guess what? Everyone has plumbing. Have I worked for mobsters? Yes. Have I worked for people that are on the council? Have I worked for people that are on the Council on Foreign Relations? Yep. Trilateral Commission? Yep. Senators? Yep. Homes for Central Intelligence Agency directors? Yep. I've worked for all kinds of folks.
Wow.
I'm really aware of paying attention in rooms when people aren't paying attention to me being in the room because they just think I'm the plumber.
Wait a minute. This is a whole nother podcast episode we could do.
Fair enough.
Leading to the South Pole.
So again, like when I went to the South Pole, was I aware that stuff was odd? Yeah, 100%. But I'm also completely, keenly aware I'm not in a position to do anything about it. Pay attention, absorb, and then when I leave, I can educate myself. I can now ask all of the questions that I wanted to, connect all the dots, which is what I did. Now I had to pay close attention to what's really going on at the Ice Cube neutrino detector. How do I find out more about what's going on? Who are the people that are in the know? Where do you get this information? What's going on with the ELF? This is what I've been doing. This is the deciphering my experience.
Yeah.
This is the time that it takes.
I want to know what's going on.
Which was a safety quote that I got from Thomas, our safety guy at the South Pole Station. If you take the time it takes less time.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It's true.
I mean,
Everybody wants to rush everything nowadays, right? I tell them there's a directed energy weapon system that's on. What was it doing? I just told you it's on. Aren't you scared enough?
well, what if it isn't doing
Right?
anything?
Well,
What do you thought about that?
what happens if I take it? What happens if I take it to the next step? Because if that step wasn't enough, right? What if I just simply said, "Oh, by the way, that it's on and it's telling every dumbass to wear a mask"? Would they not believe me if I said that? Was that going too far? Would a directed energy weapon with V2K that can communicate a message to you in your own voice personally, if it just simply said, like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal, just do it"? If it was in your own voice, would you know thyself enough to discern that out from all the other noise in your head, folks? Or would you just simply think that you had a great idea?
Of course, you know. Look, Eric, I'm very much. I'm with you in terms of
Following me?
I'm with you. I'm with
Everybody
you. In
says you
terms of
can't argue the science. So the science
Of-
exists on paper. All of those patents exist. I found a transmitter
Right.
that can functionally do it. Now we just have to consider if there's evil enough people on the planet that would put a system like that to use.
I mean,
I-
you were.
I
you
wonder.
were-
I wonder. I wonder if there's evil people on this planet that would use technology in a nefarious way against all the people of the world. Could that possibly happen? Let me bet
it's,
you
it,
$1 million it's possible.
I well, okay. Okay. I I mean, but look, you're I agree. So, for some reason, it's very hard for the public to grasp. It's hard for the public to it's hard for them to know without having been there that there is something weird going on. And also,
How about this challenge out to the public? How about this? We always say, if somebody sees something, they should say something, right? And we always say, well, if somebody saw something, they should, if somebody knew, they would tell us. So it's not going on because they don't say anything is the logic that they throw out there. Okay. I'm just following the same logic. I'm just someone who saw something and I'm saying something. So following that logic, everyone, all you have to do is just listen. That's all I'm
fair
asking
enough.
you to do. That's all I'm doing is I had an experience. I'm sharing it. I'm a plumber that's plumbed in really weird places, and I've seen a lot of things. And what am I supposed to do? Not tell all of you everything that I've seen?
No, hey, look, I'm with you here. I guess I want to know, well, okay, let me ask you this again. What if this thing that's there doesn't do anything? I mean, I don't know what it does, but what if it doesn't do anything evil?
Then why are they lying about its ability to transmit? Because that's a pretty massive omission of function.
That's
It would be like the difference. It would be like the difference between calling something a gun or my bullet carrier. If you
Right.
start out presenting your bullet carrier to people as a very safe passive device that's just meant for storage, the passive reception of your bullets to transfer them somewhere else, as if it's just science data being transferred passively out of that device. No, it's not a passive device. It goes active. And let's not play games with what that means. It's a massively powerful device that by design is highly potentially dangerous and manipulative to energy fields. So it's a problem on many levels. It's just an extremely complex problem that I'm presenting the tip of the iceberg to folks on.
Right. Okay. So you get back, and what inspired you to start really going public about this in the way that you're doing now, blowing the whistle?
A lot of it had to do with, I know folks from my crew that were negatively impacted by what appears to be Havana Syndrome effects that are only starting to make it to the mass media now.
And what is that exactly? I've never heard of that.
It is the cumulative results of a directed energy weapons attack. There's all kinds of illnesses that are aligned to it. For the privacy of my crew and HIPAA regulations, I'll just leave it as people have been negatively medically impacted.
What is it, and is it I mean, could they just say, "Well, that's what happens when you spend time in the freezing cold," or are there actual signs that came from a weapon?
Like I stated, they have the signs that came from the weapon.
I guess I'm wondering, did the doctor pull out and go, "Oh, hey, were you spending a lot of time near an ELF?"
Well,
Because
it was all taken into consideration, and these are all of the
right.
things that I'm deciphering. Yes, these are problems from being exposed to ELF. These are problems from being exposed to a lot of them are RF frequency related. So yes, you're right. Raytheon is lying on some level, but whether it's a matter of riding their antennas that were negatively impacting the crew, or the fact that the base was lying and had a transmitting weapon capacity, it turns out that maybe a foreign nation doesn't like being attacked and might fire back.
Um, I
So
have to tell you,
there's the
Eric.
potential that our crew is in the middle of World War IV. And
Oh
just
my
because we
gosh.
have walking wounded nowadays that don't have bullet holes in them doesn't mean that there's not a battlefront that's going on somewhere on this planet. And we're only starting to see in the news contemporarily that these directed energy weapons warfare symptoms, which they're calling Havana Syndrome, lest we forget what this is really going on. This
Yeah.
is directed energy weapons. We're only just starting to see it in the public forum. Well, guess what happens, folks? If you're starting to see it in the public, guess what the military industrial complex has been doing with it for decades?
These are very hard. These are very hard truths. I think that people are going to have to swallow here.
I think so.
Uh,
This is what I'm trying to get out there is because I can't sugarcoat stuff. And the way I just do it is shove it out there. It is the truth, and people have to digest it to the best of their ability.
yeah. I mean, I want to also time travel a little bit.
Sure.
And in terms of when you discovered that your past, your childhood experiences were related to why you may have been called to do this work.
Great
When did that
question.
come about?
That was recently. I started delving into the history of Long Island and Operation Paperclip and stuff like that. The Montauk Project. Things like that were interesting to me because it's local lore. I grew up on Long Island, so it's I remember when the Montauk monster stories hit the newspaper. Legitimately, I was in real time. Yes, men in black dudes came and took that thing off the beach. Every local knows it. That's how it happened.
Really? Wait a minute. Now
Straight
I've
up,
always
yeah.
heard
And then the
of
media covered it all up. Absolutely.
what?
Every local person knows exactly how it went down. Everybody was eyeballing it. Everyone knew it was weird. Everybody wanted something to become of that story. And some dudes came in suits on the beach, briefcase, took that thing. It was done.
Oh my! What about the time travel claims?
At Montauk?
Yeah.
I definitely think there is stuff. Going back, sorry, I diverged there. But being into all of these stories, I guess you would say, the lore of Long Island, it was stuff that
Yeah.
was always on my radar. And I would, you know, similar to the disinformation and the technology stuff, I mean, I'm also a student of Nikola Tesla, Victor Schauerberger, Buckminster Fuller. So it's like at certain points, these lines start to cross and make more questions arise. So
Yeah.
I knew that, again, that my past had peculiar circumstances. It was like, excuse me, everywhere I would look, I would see, like, a peculiar thing here, a peculiar thing there. And I started trying to connect the dots myself. And one of the things I remember was that when I was a kid up in the Catskills, there was a place that we used to frequent. And there was a gentleman there that I knew who was previously an SS officer and was found, innocent at the Nuremberg trials. And it was just this peculiar old school German town that we used to go summer in, so to say, and visit. And I always had that recollection that I thought that was pretty odd. And then it wasn't until many years later, another odd thing was my grandfather was in the United States Navy during World War II. I have met a lot of veterans in my life, World War II veterans. My grandfather's the only one that I've ever known who was a Navy bosun's mate serving on the Amazon River somewhere in South America during World War II.
Huh.
And he would tell stories of having to swim in the Amazon with the fuel hose, and they were fueling up float planes. That was his job. And I don't know if you know
What?
the history of the Bush family and World War II, and the fact that
I
they were found
yeah.
guilty
What?
of transferring fuel through South America to the Nazis, guilty of war crimes and all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of you can trace back that is very much overlooked, it seems.
right.
Yeah.
So it appears that I would say that my grandfather was, let's just put it in nice terms, he was a sympathizer. We'll put it that way. And there was an area on Long Island known as Camp Siegfried that I came to know that was also a stone's throw away from Wardenclyffe, Nikola Tesla's facility back in the day. So, you know how Tesla said that there's certain places on this planet that are good for better for studying energy than others. Well, Wardenclyffe is a place that Tesla tapped, and it seems that everybody became very interested in that area. So between my grandfather visiting this Camp Siegfried place back in the day and his affinity for the Nazis, I believe his friendship with SS folks and things like that put him in very close proximity, if not involved with some OSS operations in some capacity, is my understanding. And the OSS being the predecessor to the CIA, and I don't know about most folks, but it seems that the history of our nation's intelligence agencies can actually be traced back to the town of North Hempstead, which is the northern half of Nassau County, Long Island, to a town known specifically as Roslyn. That is where our intelligence agencies started and never left. The CIA may have a building somewhere in D.C. to represent itself, but like I mentioned earlier, I was plumbing the houses of the former director of the Central Intelligence Agencies. Former meaning they passed away. Their family still lived there. And passed away is a relative term. I believe that was the one that got whacked. I can't remember his name. There was a few of them that I worked for, and the one house that I'm thinking of was I can never think of the guy's name from the 80s. But his house is over in Brookville, right outside of Roslyn. And Long Island is just flush with intelligence and Operation Paperclip. You have Brookhaven National Labs, which is effectively Department of Energy cover for CIA tech headquarters. And you have all kinds of shenanigans going on over there. I just came across an article last week. I don't know if you heard this one, but Brookhaven National Labs just reported that they, utilizing light, they manifested matter and antimatter for the first time ever.
I'm wondering what is going on with Long Island. What is this? Everybody
It's
talks about these
absurd.
places on the Earth with portals and stargates, and I know there's something there, but I mean, could there have been a Stonehenge on Long Island? Is it?
There were
Is it?
pyramids. There were pyramids off the point of Montauk. When George Washington went to Long Island, one of the first things he did was hike all the way out to Montauk when this was not developed land. The first thing he did when he got to Montauk was commission a lighthouse to be built. It was the first lighthouse in the U.S. Think about that. The first lighthouse in the U.S. is at Montauk Point. The Montauk
Is
Indians, according to all of the
particular.
other Native Americans in the U.S., the Montauk Indians are said to be different and are said to be from Egypt.
Huh.
There's so much going on Long Island that's not properly discussed. and that there's
Yeah.
that intelligence community and that information and that data for many years has been coveted, secreted. People like Long Island is very interesting. I worked in a town, city of Glen Cove on Long Island, was incorporated in 1676. It's older than the United States of America.
Oh,
Think about
what?
that. Think about that. Are
Yeah, no,
there
that is very
legal
strange.
circumstances that happen when things that are odd like that occur? Who's in charge of who?
That is, I mean, that's very early on. Were there Rockefellers back then?
I worked a lot of the properties, absolutely 100%. I worked all of the former estates of the Vanderbilts, the Piedmonts, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, all of their old estates. I've been on almost every one of them. Seen the current.
Tell us right
owner.
now who's running the CIA? Who's in charge? Do you know?
Oh,
Is there
somebody that would be not by name. What I keep trying to impress upon folks is that the puppets, the wealthy people that are presented to us by the mass media, are not the truly wealthy. They're peons. They're
I was
nothing.
going to say, I always feel like there's got to be something. We hear about the Rothschilds, we hear about the Rockefellers and all that stuff, but there's got to be someone above that, right?
Absolutely. Those people are the names that from back in antiquity made the mistake of still allowing their names to be out there. They all learned the error of that way. They no longer profess who they are, what they're up to, where there used to be this amount of bragging going on because there was no way for these people, in a way, it was ego stroking. There was no way for these people back in the day to stroke each other's egos without it happening through the public. And there was pros and cons to that, of course, right? The pros where you can get all the accolades of the people when everybody loved you, but then there's also a cons list to that. What the uber wealthy, the truly elite of the planet understand now is that they can accomplish this without the public being involved, and now they don't have any of the cons list. They don't have to worry about pitchforks and stuff like that. They don't have to worry about things like the French Revolution. We don't even know who they are anymore, and that's what they pay for is anonymity.
Do you have an acting theory about what's going on? I mean, I've heard it can be tied to aliens. There's an extraterrestrial battle going on. There are these lizard people. Some say it's just pure ego. People in power, they get off on, what can they do next once they have everything? What's next? Enslaving humanity. It feeds this dark energy inside of them. I mean, where are you at with all that?
I am for it's always way more complex than anybody can possibly think of. I think it's a huge mistake for us to constantly be trying to dwindle things down to the simplest answer. That is a bastardization of Occam's razor that everybody screws up. This idea that, well, if it's whatever the most simplest thing is the most likely answer. Whoa, where do you ever see that in life? Things are always way more complex is what it really boils down to. Occam's razor is basically when you take the problem, right? You slam it on the table, boom, here's the problem. And then you take a razor blade and you start to slice off a piece of that problem and you assess and you start to try to divine or discern, can this be part of the problem? No, it can't. Okay, then I can discard that. That's the idea of Occam's razor, is to slice off each piece and assess it and discard whatever is not possible. Whatever's left is possible. That's Occam's razor. And it doesn't care about simplicity or complexity. It's about possibility and whether you can negate the possibility or not. So you ask me what I think is going on. I'm going to start with all possibility exists always until proven otherwise. And I think there's a whole bunch of people lying about what can't be happening.
Oh, that is definitely a loaded answer.
I think there's a lot of things that we know can be happening. There's a lot of people that know of things that are happening. But what they certainly don't want the masses to know is any of that stuff going on. And if you can't see that that hasn't been happening in history over and over again, the deception of the masses. I mean, come on, folks.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, so let's get back to your childhood and
And
these
Long
things you
Island.
were discovering. Yeah, Long Island. I mean, at this place, I've done my fair share of performing in Long Island. I was part of
Oh, nice.
an entertainment murder mystery company, and I did a
Oh, cool.
lot of shows over there. And I used to love going there because it was always, you've got evil, obviously, but there were people that said, hey, you know what, there's some weird stuff that happens here, and I used to love
Oh,
geeking
yeah.
out about it. But now that you're telling me that it's real, or all possibilities could be real, I mean, what uh what happened to you in childhood? I know there was something that
Yeah,
very early on.
we'll just jump right into it. I am aware now that when I was in grammar school, I became involved in what we now know as a CIA program called Stargate, where they were subcontracting somehow with the company called the Monroe Institute. And they were doing a remote viewing training protocol where they were working with us as children. How do I put it? Not in a way that they were explaining to us everything that was going on. They were deceiving us and using us to go through this program, and I had to learn later on afterwards what the program was. I now know, unfortunately, they were giving us eye drops. This was something that I recalled. I now know that it is most likely some sort of a specific dose, a low dose, or some sort of dose of LSD is what I'm being told. Which
Holy crap.
not something that you should be giving to kids without telling their parents, I guess.
I remember asking you at the Total Disclosure Summit put on by Full Spectrum Universe and Watchers Talk. You were there, and I remember asking you, what about kids?
What
And
about
do you have contact? And you said you're not currently in contact with any other classmates that were involved in the program. Is that
correct?
the case? Oh,
That's correct.
that's. I mean, is there any way to look that up? Have you tried to reach out to anybody? I mean,
I haven't.
it would be
I used to be friends with some of them on Facebook, um, but that account got shut down. So I mean, I could theoretically reach out to some of them and inquire. Um, I don't know how receptive they would be to it technically. I mean, I'm keenly aware of how outside of the box my thoughts are on things. And I'm also
right.
extremely aware of how different my life and experience is that allows me to look at my past the way that I do. In my own experience, I have a practice that I call reframing memories. Okay. First and foremost, people have to understand that going through these programs is traumatic. So that's a reality of life. And in that trauma, a child's mind reacts in very specific ways. So compartmentalization is also something that can be programmed. So I have to also have an understanding of how I was programmed and how I remembered things. And that was part of my deciphering my experience to go back and reframe my memories. So I had a firsthand experience memory, so to say, of my childhood and being in that library. But let's just say that I had that picture hanging on the wall in my memory banks, and it looked great. But in reality, that picture was matted and framed. My psyche covered stuff on there to make the picture easy to look at. That's what a
Yeah.
child's brain does when traumatized by things that it shouldn't be experiencing. I don't know that if I contact somebody else, if I can get them to see anything other than their framed picture. Nor do I know that it's appropriate to challenge them to
That's a good point.
unframe it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder. I mean, as you keep doing this show, I wonder if anybody's going to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I remember these eye drops. Something was
I
weird then,
well,
Eric."
I have had folks reach out to me about that, not from my school group class specifically, but there are other folks. Tony Rodriguez is another experiencer who's gone through these programs, and he has confirmed that he had gotten the eye drops as well.
Yeah. Wait, when these memories came to you, I mean, were they was because it sounds like it's fairly recent. I mean, did you have a hypnotic regression? Did something just flash to you over time? I mean, how did you uncover this experience from your childhood so vividly?
Those they're more like I guess in the words that you used, I would say it's more like a flash. It's more like when you remember one thing and you make a connection in one capacity, that all of this like other stuff will flood in to follow up.
Yeah.
One of the ways that Tony explained it is like he's like, like if I said to you right now, like, hey, Greg, do you remember your ninth birthday? Tell me everything about your ninth birthday. You know,
Right.
you're gonna have limited details. Which first and
Yeah.
foremost, welcome to the troll world. When they're like, oh, you can't remember your ninth birthday, liar. That didn't happen then.
Yeah. Right.
That would be the
Right.
world of the trolls. But anyhow, if you could remember, right? If you just said, you know what, I don't remember my ninth birthday much, but I do remember I had a party at my house, and my friend Tim was there, and my friend Jen was there, and that's about all I can remember. Fair enough. But what I could tell you is if you called your friend Tim and you called your friend Jen and you started just talking about it, you'll start to make connections. Things like that are mechanical tools that we can use to trigger our memories. They work. So I got
Yeah.
into the practice of doing these types of things in certain circumstances, and I have had people reach out to me. I have been communicating with folks. I actually just did my first regression yesterday, but it was
That's shocking to me.
you know.
I mean, I feel like you would have done it earlier. I would have said, "Hey, you know what? I need to get a regression immediately to know what." I mean, did you uncover anything that shocked you?
It wasn't so shocking, but back to the thought on the regression thing. No, I'm very apprehensive about who I let connect to my brain. I've learned I've
That's
learned
fair.
better on
That's
that
fair.
one. Yeah, I have massive trust issues with who I'm going to let walk around in there.
Yeah. Though, so you're getting. I want to piece it all together here.
Go ahead.
And how could I? Because you're still
Yeah, I'm
deciphering
still.
it.
Yeah,
Like,
good luck if you can piece it together before me.
yeah,
I'll work
if somebody
as
can
fast
piece
as I can,
together his
Greg.
experiencing, deciphering.tv, everybody. I mean, you have to check out this show as well as just the content you're putting out there in general. It's so interesting. Do you? Of the flashes, I mean, was there anything in particular? Do you remember doing any remote viewing tests or experiencing
Oh
that?
yes. That
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
very
What
interesting
were some
stuff.
of those experiences?
That was almost like a reverse flash, so to say. When I started looking into what is actually the Monroe Institute remote viewing protocols, the process was that's when I started kind of flipping out, because it was like, I know this. I did this. This is what they were making me do in the library. They weren't telling me it was remote viewing. They weren't telling me anything about the Monroe Institute. This is why I felt like it was nonsense when I was a kid. An ideogram, I don't know if you're familiar with that, is you just do a scribble on the paper, and then from that they do a line of questioning and so on and so forth, which now that I've studied up on the Monroe Institute stuff, I understand what they're getting at and what they're doing. But I assure you that when I was in grammar school and they were telling me to squiggle a line and then asking me, do I see a sky or do I see a lake or do I see mountains, and say whatever you want, anything you say is correct, it was bizarro world to me. It didn't make any sense. They weren't explaining what we were doing. They were just giving me direction. I would do it. Apparently, I was intuitive enough that my answers were functional. They knew the system. I didn't need to know the system. It apparently works that well.
The next question I want to ask is, were they doing it to you? But you've already advised me against that kind of questioning. Though that said, I don't know. I mean, do you know why? Were they trying to make?
I do know why. They were.
Okay.
It was a CIA intel operation. They were using us. We were qualified remote viewers gathering intel. They were functionally using us.
Did you do you remember uncovering any big, and did you ever move up the ranks to
I was an excellent remote viewer. You have to understand how remote viewing works. It's not Because they were lying to us first and foremost, it's very different. The normal protocol is that you do a remote viewing situation, right? And then they give you feedback. They tell you you did a good job, and they let you know, oh, here's the picture of what you were supposed to do. But they weren't doing that with us. They would tell us that we did a great job and then exit us out. They were lying to us, okay? So imagine there's a secret mission going on somewhere in the world. Oh, my God, our spy plane went down. Where is it? I don't know. Go get those little remote viewers at that Catholic school on Long Island. Ask them if they can find where the plane is. They don't bring me in a room. They don't bring me in a room and say that you're a secret agent trying to find a spy plane. They don't do that. They lie. They say, "Come here, children. You're smart children. We're going to do a test today and blah, 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 blah. Here, I want you to just draw a line." Okay, I drew the line. What do you see? Do you see mountains or a jungle or a river? Say anything you want. There's no such thing as a wrong answer. We're remote viewing at that point. They're right. We're good. We're intuitive. What we're seeing is what they're looking for. But what they're doing to us is lying about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Now, I might say, I see a river, I see a jungle, I see something metal, and they're going, oh, cool, this kid sees the freaking plane. But they're not going to tell me that. They're never going to bring me in the loop. That's what I learned. This is how these circumstances work. This is compartmentalization of information. This is need-to-know basis on an extreme level, to the point that our federal agents will drug children to ascertain their intuitive skill set for a divine nature, a sixth sense, so to say, that nobody even wants to discuss the fact that it totally exists.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I see a world where this stuff comes out in the open, the power of humans, and people go, look, no, you don't need to drug kids, but if you do train people early enough to tune into their intuition, we could all accomplish much greater things as humanity. But of course, that's just that's just, peace and love over here versus this military industrial profiteering. I mean, that is a risk that completely flips society upside down to have that kind of knowledge out there. I suppose one could argue. Do you remember when you got out of it? I mean, was it like you were in this program and then things were relatively normal, or were you always kind of being brought into projects unbeknownst to you throughout your entire life, you think?
I believe there's still something going on. I believe there was some hard break that occurred in 1994 when I was in the submarine service. And if you pay attention to the way of the world in 1994, that was also pretty much the same damn time that Bill Clinton had come out about all of the illegal experiments on humans, and there was some sort of transitional change occurring. It is in my research that this is literally par for the course. There was something going on in the Stargate program. 1994, 1995, they switched from DIA to CIA. Right when I was in the submarine service, this, for me, in my experience, is a very peculiar time in my life. That whole 93 to 95 era was odd for me. I did my senior prom at Montauk Point. How about you?
Wait a minute. Odd for you? Can you go into that a little bit?
In 1993, we went out to Hither Hills Campground, and we did our prom weekend was out at Montauk. We saw some weird ass UFO over the water. It was a very peculiar weekend. And technically, this is info that I don't put out there that much, but this is actually the fact of the matter as well, the oddity of life and the truth of it all. There was a girl that I was friends with who, it was her idea. Let's go to Montauk for prom weekend. Let's take a drive out there. It was far from where we were in the middle of Nassau County. Let's take a drive out to Montauk and see if we can finagle renting a place. We're high school kids, so we were scamming. We were hustling and playing games, and she wanted to go for it, and I was game. I'm like, let's do this. So we rented a place out in Montauk for prom weekend. We went. We had our interesting event. Okay.
Yeah.
That was in June of 93. In March of 1994, I was now in the Navy, contracted to join in the submarine service. And this gal who had Montauked me the year before was announced that she had passed away coming home from her job in Montauk. She was the first person ever killed by a deer on Long Island in a traffic accident.
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow.
always found that as peculiar as well.
Huh. What do you did you look any further, or is that just
I think she had some issues in the past that would put her in the programs as well, and that it was
yeah.
not much of a coincidence that she wasn't going to live long. She was a pretty girl. She was adopted by a very rich, affluent family who had private planes, which was not common for Long Island folks. So
Yeah.
she was at a very different level, and she has since passed. So I guess some of this truth can come out as to who she was and these connections that I had. But this whole Montauk stuff and its sinister stuff goes through that. And when you start adding morbidity to the equation, things increase exponentially on being questionable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Look, we could do 10 more episodes on this. I mean, this is really fascinating stuff. Uh Let me ask you this. In light of all your connections,
Hmm.
and the fact that you were part of this program, and all these strange things were happening in Long Island growing up your entire life, your grandfather, all this stuff, why do you then think you were called to go to the South Pole? I mean, what do they what do you is there have you figured that connection out?
I
I figured
have.
they'd be done with you at this point. Oh,
No,
okay. Yeah,
it's
yeah, I'm curious.
it's the Jesuits. Apparently, the hierarchy of the Raytheon management is Jesuit, and they are a sinister shadow hand, and I have connections with them through my childhood as well. When we would go on retreat out of my grammar school, we would go to a Jesuit retreat house on Long Island that was a sinister facility called Inishfada, which is Gaelic for Long Island. At the time that it was constructed by the Brady family, an affluent billionaire financer of Jesuit activities, it was the
Yeah.
fourth largest residence in the country. And Mrs. Brady wanted to make it a country home for boys. And the entire exterior was carved with scrollwork of ornate Gilded Age Long Island structures with all of like Aesop's fables and all kinds of other creepy stuff.
Oh, that is very strange.
Yeah, so we used to go to retreat there in my grammar school. There was MK Ultra stuff going on there, and I'm trying to divine out my memories. It appears that I have Montauk stuff going on as well. There's folks that have been in the programs that seem to have recollections of me there more than I recall. I have recollections of what I would say are Montauk and MK Ultra type activities, but those are, I guess, more framed in my memories and guarded from my perspective at the moment as I'm trying to make connections.
Yeah. Huh. I wonder what the Jesuits wanted with you back involved with this. I mean, could you have? Well, yeah. We don't know the answer, but I wonder if.
I have an understanding of the answer. The Jesuits being an old line following bloodlines, it would stand to reason that my family is just being followed. I have whatever is in the bloodline. That's what they do. They follow
Right.
the family line,
Right.
and they put people on the right path, so to say, would be their perspective.
Right path. Do you feel currently that you're in good hands with the Jesuits?
No, no,
Okay. Yeah. What is
no.
their right path?
No,
What is this
when
right
I say
path?
this, I said that was by their perspective,
Okay. Okay.
their
Fair enough.
definition. Yeah, I'm only I can't begin to speak for them. All I'm understanding is that I can see the manipulations in my life by their intent. It doesn't mean that I agree with it.
Yeah.
I'm just
Oh my
observing.
gosh. Is there look, I know you great people on your show. I mean, you mentioned Stephen Greer.
Well, he wasn't
You
on yet. He said he'd come on. We've been just talking
oh
behind the scenes.
oh you were just talking behind well, that's even better. In a lot of ways.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. And oh yeah, you got to go to this website, everybody. Deciphering dot to see all these documents. It's all there. And you're going on, and I find your show fascinating because
Oh,
these
thank
people
you.
are putting the pieces together. Yeah, you have Joseph Powell on. Didn't you talk to Stuart Swerdlow too?
I'm trying to get him on the air as well.
I know you're trying to get. I know. Yeah, I feel like you're kind of all these Montauk people. There's a connection.
Nobody wants. There's a lot of folks that don't want to talk about anything. Is really what it boils down to. And I'm not that guy. I want to talk about stuff. I think humanity can take all of the truth that there is, and there's a lot of people that disagree with me. And I'm gonna stay on my side of the line. I think everybody can handle the truth, and I want to dig as deep as I can to find the truth and get it out there as fast as I can. That's my mission.
Now, hey, and I fully support it. Let me ask you this, because I've definitely asked others along this line of thinking before. Are you nervous about, you know what? No, this is the thing. I've heard different rules for the elites in power. I've heard that if you're saying the truth, they're not going to do anything to you because then it makes them look bad. Is that kind of the operating principle you're going on, or do you sometimes wake up at night and look around in black? I mean, where are you at with that?
I used to have a nickname in a shop that I was in at one point. They called me Spartacus. And that's basically my angle on this at this point. I'm not scared at all. I don't know what everybody's so scared of. Stop being chicken shits. I don't know what to tell everybody because in reality, there may be bad people on this planet working against us, the good people. But the facts of the matter are there's way more good people than bad people. So stop succumbing to the ways of divisiveness that the elite invest tons of money in, making us act like we hate each other when we don't. We're all in this together, folks. We, the poor people of the world who have the benefit of somehow knowing each other's names, are not at each other's throats like the news media would like you to believe. That's only the investment of billionaires. We all get along fine and dandy, and they're against us. That's what's going on in the world. That's the truth, is that everything that you see in your digi world is a rich man's trick.
Oh my. Yeah, I was gonna say, what would be more satisfying for you? Information on UFO disclosure, if it all came out, or on the disclosure about who these people are, what they're doing, and really facing the consequences of being outed publicly. What would you rather see in your lifetime?
If we were going to get actual truth, I would say the UFO dissemination because it's above the other problem, and it would rectify the lower issue. The powers that be, you were going in that direction earlier, are just selling us out. There is absolutely an off-world activity. The complexity of the cosmos, folks, is probably more akin to something you've seen in a Star Wars movie. That is how prevalent life is in the cosmos. And basically, the shell game that's going on right now is that you can't be involved in intergalactic commerce. There's a lot of people that say that the property that you have has so much stuff of value in an intergalactic market that every single person on every single square yard of this planet could be infinitely wealthy if they were just allowed to communicate and have commercial business enterprises in this galactic market that does exist. Oh, but it turns out there's robber barons that just want to monopolize the market. What a shocker.
Yeah, so I mean, look, when you see in the mainstream media, I have to ask now, the Bezos, the Richard Branson, Elon Musk going up there. I mean, do you think, are they in contact with these off-world beings, you think?
Something, I'll bet you that they probably are in some capacity. They would be the people that would be getting the attention of the folks off world. They would be seen as our big brains from someone, outside of our paradigm. This is another odd thing about Long Island, actually.
Oh, wait, tell me about that.
The Long Island Aeronautical Country Club. Think about that title. The Long Island Aeronautical Country Club. So it was a place for rich people with their planes. Just due south of Roslyn, the area that I had mentioned was the intelligence hub, okay? So there were folks like Charles Lindbergh, the most affluent pilots of the time, were members of this airport country club on Long Island. So now, just like Bezos and all these people would be the ones that the aliens would first be interested in, right? So now imagine there's only one place on the planet that airplanes are functionally flying in and out of, and it's called Long Island. Where do you think UFOs became interested in people first? I would say where the planes were moving around first. So here's another fascinating fact from my childhood. The Long Island Aeronautical Country Club eventually shut down and sold its property to William Levitt, who created Levittown. And that property that was the Long Island Aviation Country Club became one piece of this massive area that was called Levittown. But more importantly, that property that probably had UFOs visiting it back in the day because of all the famous people with their airplanes, that actual property became where my childhood house was built in Levittown, on the former property of the Long Island Aviation Country Club. I actually do believe that way back when there was interactions with our flying vehicles and other flying vehicles. I believe that those communications would have got them to the point where they became familiar with the geographical position on Long Island. I also believe that when they sold the country club, the folks at the country club probably didn't get to send a memo to every friend that they knew to let them know they weren't going to be there anymore. So I also imagine that folks probably came back to try to visit their friends at the same place they used to know to hook up with them. And then just probably said, well, they're not here, but you are.
There is... I'm trying to figure out what needs more disclosure, the South Pole or Long Island.
Right? It's a tough call. It's a tough call.
Yeah. What's weirder? What's weirder? I don't know the answer at this point.
Yeah, Long Island has a rich history of peculiar programs. I mean, I was a stone's throw away from the Bethpage facility for Grumman, where the lunar module was built. There's all kinds of shady stuff for that.
Why is it all happening there? What center is happening in this place? What is going on? Mm-hmm. Very strange.
I think it's like Tesla's with something to do with this, there's energies about things. So I don't want to profess that I know everything about energy, but I feel like I know enough about Nikola Tesla to I default to, if Nikola Tesla says something, I presume it to be correct until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
He's done enough at this point. And he's spoken highly of Long Island for some reason. And it seems like nobody's ever disagreed with him. And it seems like there's a lot of interesting technology being utilized on Long Island. I mean, like I mentioned, that Brookhaven facility where they're using a relatively relativistic heavy ion collider to, now they're manufacturing matter and antimatter out of light beams in vacuums. And this is stuff that people have been professing for decades now is possible, and people were saying that it was woo-woo crazy stuff, but now it's happening. We touch on the topic of time travel here and there. It's scientifically happening. Also, discovered on Long Island. This stuff's been going on. Anti-grav has been going on since the Sonora Aero Club, at the very least, in the 1800s on the west coast of this country. There's so much stuff that's documented in the shadows. But what are we going to do? Just like we had the Wright brothers discover flight. Does that mean they discovered flight? They invented flight? That flight wasn't possible until the thought happened in their brains? Does that mean that if there was 1,000,000 years ago, there was an advanced civilization of human beings, they couldn't have had flight because the Wright brothers invented it? So are we inventing or refinding, or is stuff hidden and secured away from us? Maybe anti-gravity has been around through all of our history, but only certain people were in the know.
Yeah.
Maybe Atlantis is still out there. Maybe it's not sunk. Maybe we're not privy to its location. Maybe we're just being misinformed or disinformed. Maybe there's a highly advanced civilization in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. How would you or I know if everything invested was to tell us otherwise?
So really your message at the end of all of this is, hey, look, I guess I'm wondering overall, Eric, are you trying to point us to the answers? Are you to there's been a cover up? What's more important to you? The cover
Right
up
now,
or the answers themselves?
right now, I want to point towards the cover up because I don't want to pretend that I have all of the answers. I just have what I believe are phenomenal questions that people can't answer. So for me, it's about undermining the foundations of the deception that was laid upon us. There is an existing deception that was created. I'm about undermining it.
Yeah.
I believe
Well,
I've
look,
come across enough information to say there's some BS going on out there.
yeah, you've really lived it, and that is for everybody that wants to go into this more. I mean, we're gonna have to have another episode about you plumbing places. I want to know the weird stuff you saw.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know. I want to know
I would
undercut.
love that
Look,
one.
I live in
Do you
Brooklyn.
remember
right
Paris
now.
Hilton? Paris Hilton and her friend had a TV show called The Simple Life. It was a reality TV show back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
I was plumbing on the North Shore of Long Island in the fancy mansions at that time that show was on. And I remember joking around saying I should put a camera on the brim of my hat and have a show called The Service Life. And I said, I'm like,
Oh
it'll
my
blow
gosh.
people's minds, the story that I have going into people's homes and what I have to deal with. And it's off the wall, especially the rich people. They're
Oh my
insane.
gosh. I was gonna say, yeah. As someone that lives in Brooklyn, I'm going. Does this guy? Where? Is there any surprise? What's the biggest New York City secret you could tell me right now? That where should I look if it's something right now that nobody else knows about that you just happen to encounter in your time?
In New York City, huh? I didn't do tons of work in the Manhattan area. Most of my stuff, I would say, would have been probably Western Nassau to Queens border would be where I typically did the majority of my work. So, like, you would call that Long Island again, not the city.
Yeah, yeah.
But on Long Island, I would say that there were buildings.
Are we talking
that
like
I would work
Stanley
at.
Kubrick? Stanley Kubrick, the sex mansions from was that?
Oh,
going
there's
on?
all. Yeah, the mansions are as old as they're more absurd than you've seen in a movie. I've been in mansions that are so big, right, that I would, I'd park my work van out front. I'd go in the building, and then the maitre d' would take me through the home, and I would manufacture a list of all the things that he's showing me. But effectively, at the tail end of this tour of problems through the home, he then departs, and I'm left to make repairs. I've been in homes that are so massive, I've been completely lost and had to ask for help to figure out how to get back to my vehicle. I mean, immensely huge homes. The amount of wealth and opulence that the average person doesn't know exists is off-putting when I am aware of the problems that we have in the world. And I often think of it like, if instead of dollars, we got paid in apples, right? Consumable goods. No one would ever let billionaires sit on piles of apples. We would understand the waste of resource that it is. I'm not saying I have all the answers for the world. I'm saying something's the matter. There's something
Yeah.
immoral. There's something immoral going on. I know it's legal, but there's something immoral going on. If we were to pay these people in apples, it would be more visible. They would have no need for all of them. They would figure out a way to barter them for other things they need. They wouldn't be so wasteful.
Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, this is just
Hashtag oligarchy.
yeah. You I mean, is there anything that you're hoping to uncover next? If there's one big mystery out of all of this that okay, I'm
Oh,
deciphering my
you were asking
experience.
about places and buildings, and I had bounced off
I
Manhattan.
know,
but
I was
Long
talking
Island-
about sex mansions. I don't even know
Yeah,
what I was talking about. But
commercial
yes.
commercial buildings. I have on a multitude of times shown up. Right, I'm a plumber. People have plumbing problems. I have no control over who calls me. I just go to the call. I have on a fistful of occasions been to places in Roslyn, Long Island, where I show up to meet the on-site maintenance person, and they're not your standard, fumfering, careless, maintenance guy that's, more or less just mopping floors here and there. Sometimes I show up and there's a really crackerjack person who seems to be really on top of their game, oddly enough. And then next thing you know, I get in an elevator because the job ticket said, fix leaking toilet in basement. And then next thing you know, I'm on a 5-minute elevator ride to the basement. Yeah, and my eyes go just like that as it's just sitting there and waiting. And then the maintenance guy, strike up some good small talk for 4.5 minutes out of the elevator ride. And then it still is like an uncomfortable pause at the end and the ding. And then like, okay, we're at the basement.
Huh. What
That
is
was
going on?
that one of those buildings I will admit to because the owner's dead. But one of those buildings was the Paul Corporation, Pall, and both the corporate facilities and the owner's home, Dr. Paul himself. I was a plumber for both the person in his private residence and his corporate facilities. Dr. Paul worked with Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project. The Paul Corporation, as presented to the world, makes filtration systems. High-end filtration systems is how they present. Yep. Yeah, high-end filtration systems for nuclear reactors.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
They
what
make
do you
filters. Yeah, we make filters. We got some filters.
Yeah, that's quite a filter.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you guys filter? Nuclear reactions.
Oh my god. Well, I guess the other thing I was gonna wonder is, did you ever stumble on any machines or devices in these homes that made you go, "Oh, I've never seen a common person with this. Clearly, they have some advanced technology."
All the time. I was constantly amazed at the people that I would meet. All kinds of technology. These are the richest people in the world. They're way ahead of the curve. What they have in their homes is freakishly advanced. I worked at the guy's house who, I don't know if you remember back when National Geographic put the first hologram on their cover. It was a big deal. First time they ever had a hologram right on the cover of National Geographic. I worked at the guy's house who made that, who was the hologram expert at the time, and he had this really cool hologram machine set up in his freaking workshop. So stuff like that. I mean, I would see really cool stuff regularly. These corporations, there was stuff going on both corporately and in the people's homes. There was a house that I went to one time. They had it was set up. I was there when they were building it, and I was there when they were done with it. I was still their plumber. I'll just say that this family, they owned one of the biggest lock companies in the U.S. Because that's what kingpin families do. You own something that in perpetuity just gives you money. So they they had a really cool house. They invested in cool things, and I remember they set it up when you walked in the front door. The way that the house was set up, there was like the main atrium, but you can break to the left or break to the right, and then there was like art on the wall and stuff like that. But they had it set up. They cut all this stuff into the wall and made it look like a picture. But it was a hologram. So it was like a haunted house, like a Disney type thing. So when you walked by, the picture kept turning its head and looking at you when you went by, and it looked totally real. So it was really freaking creepy.
That is very awesome. I mean, it's not a time machine like I'm hoping you encountered, but it still makes me wonder. I mean, if these people have these devices in their homes and there's this connection in Long Island to all this advanced technology potentially, I mean, what's going on in some of the basements? There's got to be some weird stuff, right? I'm hoping there is.
A lot of science projects. A lot of folks are really into things. I had a customer in Roslyn that was very much into Tesla coils, all kinds of things, and I got a wonderful education from that customer. Had a lot of fun. There's a lot of folks. I mean, so I've been digging for quite some time. And this is another oddity, right? So Brookhaven National Labs and all the science that they're doing, you'll see in the I just put up a video on YouTube with an article about the new science at Brookhaven, and you'll see in the articles that they refer to a piece of equipment at Brookhaven as the light source. So they say that they're manifesting matter and antimatter out of thin air by utilizing light beams in a vacuum. Well, guess what? They have a light source. Well, guess what? The light source is a nuclear reactor. And I had customers on Long Island. Again, I don't have control over who rings my phone and says my faucet's leaking. I just go, right? That's what I do. That's my job. But it was amazing to me how many times my phone would ring. I would go to a customer's home. The faucet wouldn't really have a problem, but they would want it serviced anyhow. No argument. They're going to pay. Hey, I'm happy. I start making the service call repair. I notice there's a stack of books the entire time on the table because I'm a total bibliophile and I love reading. I see you have a bunch of nice books behind you. If I walked into your home, the first thing I would do is start looking at your bookshelves and seeing what you read. I'm very interested in what folks read. And I would be amazed how many times I'd be at that kitchen sink repair and that customer would then start to talk to me about things that I had just been discussing the day before with my friend. And now they have a stack of books for me as well on the topics that I had just been discussing the day before. Most of my books I got that way.
You truly have had one of the strangest lives I've ever. I mean, I'm riveted by it. I know that if we were to do this interview in another 2 weeks, have more intel about.
Yeah,
it's
sometimes I wonder if I just sit in front of my bookshelf and just panned across it and be like, "Can you actually believe that people had the wherewithal to hand me all these books?" I mean, that in and of itself is mind-numbing.
Yeah. Okay, look, this has been so mind-blowing. It's everybody check out Deciphering.tv to check out Deciphering My Experience. Truly, I mean, Eric, I hope you figure it out. This has been Eric J. Hecker. Such
I'm working on it, Greg.
mind-blowing discussion. We'll have intel if you can corroborate Eric's experience. Please give him information.
If anything I'm saying out there makes sense or, whatsoever, I mean, there are folks that reach out to me that, oftentimes say, "Oh my God, when you said this, that triggered something in me." This is how it works, folks. Share it.
I love it. Eric, for sharing your story. I look forward to having you on again. This has been great.
Great, Greg.